feelings. وَيُطْعِمُونَ الطَّعَامَ عَلَى حُبِّهِ. They feed people food. Now it says عَلَى حُبِّهِ. Actually, I'll come to that in the next portion. Let's look at the few things I did mention here. Let's translate it. They give food, or they feed food despite their love of it. Despite their love of it. And also means because of their love of God. There's two meanings of عَلَى حُبِّهِ. Despite their love of it and out of love of God. Okay? Who do they give food to? Miskinan wa yatiman wa asira. Miskin, someone who cannot help themselves. Yatim, an orphan. And asir, general translation is a prisoner. Okay, but we're going to have to dig deep into that. First of all, yut'imuna at-ta'am. At-ta'am has al on it. If he just said yut'imun, they feed, then you didn't have to say the word at-ta'am. So the fact that at-ta'am is mentioned means it's significant. What does it tell you? It tells you that there is a portion of my wealth that is not for me. And I know that already. It's the food. It's not just some food, it's the food meant for the person. Okay? And I don't, by the way, miskinan, yatiman, asiran, they're all general. Any poor, any needy person, any orphan, any prisoner. But the food is specific. The food is at-ta'am. Why? Because I don't know who's going to get this, but I know it's not going to be me. That I know. This is not for me. This is for someone else. This is what يطعمون الطعام. Then, تقديم على حبه ومعنياه. This is, I already told you, there's two meanings of على حبه. They give this, they are giving food because even though they love the food themselves. But what does that mean? They give food even though they love food themselves. It means we are thinking in very narrow ways about food. When you're teaching someone so if you're teaching a young man how to fix cars, you're actually feeding him. You didn't buy him a sandwich, you taught him how to fix a car. How are you feeding him? Actually, you're not just feeding him. You're feeding him, you're feeding his old parents, you're feeding his future wife, you're feeding his kids, right? We think of feeding food in one way. Buy a sandwich, hand a sandwich. But it'am, this is why, they say, رَجُلٌ طَاعِمْ ذَا حَسَنٍ. That's someone who has a good life is ta'im. Yut'imun, feeding, actually means enabling somebody to have a life where they can feed themselves. That's part of the meaning. So it's not just you distributed sandwiches because of this ayah. But you created job placement seminars. You created opportunities for women to learn how to start their own business. You created economic activity. This is yut'imun at-ta'am, because what you did enabled them to bring food to the table for themselves and for their family members. So creating economic activity is inside the meaning of وَيُطْعِمُونَ الطَّعَامِ. Now, for example, flood happens and there's a disaster. Right? Now we're giving to the disaster victims. But we didn't fix the dam and we didn't fix the infrastructure, so next year it's going to be the same flood again. Right? So some of that money should be going to those who need. That's emergency. But if you really want to do yut'imun at-ta'am for generations, so they don't starve the next year, you got to fix the corrupt road system. You got to stop those corrupt politicians that are keeping the dam from being built properly. You've got to keep those rich people who are building hotels on the waterway and resorts and don't care, and then those buildings collapse and the bridges collapse. You got to stop them from doing that. That's all yut'imun at-ta'am. It's a small phrase, but it's got a whole world. This is now spreading good in the world. Remember what I told you about good? It's like land. So good things, they're stable good. They're not just you did some good and then things are bad again. Then you did some good and things are bad again. No, you're creating an engine of goodness. You're creating something that's going to continue on its own. Sustainability is part of يُطْعِمُونَ الطَّعَامَ عَلَى حُبِّهِ. And the reason these three are mentioned is important. Yatim, or miskin, someone who cannot help themselves. If you give food to someone who cannot help themselves, tomorrow will they have food? No. But if you empower them, then they'll no longer be miskin. And then if you did that, then tomorrow they'll come back and they will help the next miskin not be miskin anymore. Like when I went to an orphanage in Pakistan, where they don't just run the orphanage, they took some of the best school teachers in the country. They're trying to give these kids the best high quality level education, and they make sure that those kids from that orphanage at least get a PhD, at least. And some of those kids, when they get their PhD and they're high level executives, they give half of their salary back to the orphanage, and they've created a system where the orphans are becoming the yut'imun at-ta'am group, right? And they're making the poor and the needy the most powerful. And they're uplifting entire generations. This is the system we have to create. Now let's talk about who is asir. Asir, I said, prisoner, yeah? Now think about the time of the Prophet ﷺ. I said this surah was revealed in Mecca. Who was a prisoner? Nobody. Nobody was a prisoner. How did people become prisoner? Well, you can become prisoner through war. So after Badr, we're going to have prisoners of war, right? So some even looked at this ayah and said, maybe this is even talking about giving food to the kuffar who are battle prisoners and being good to them also, right? But there's another more direct meaning. Think about, for example, Yusuf alayhi salam for a moment. Was he a prisoner in the well? Yeah, in a sense he was. When he was taken out and sold in the market, was he also a prisoner then? Yeah. When he was made a slave in Egypt, was he also a prisoner then? And literally when he was in jail, was he also a prisoner then? In other words, prisoners aren't just people in jails with chains on them. Prisoners can become prisoners for economic situation, social situation. Somebody could become a prisoner of debt. Somebody took a loan and then they got a car accident and they can't work and they can't pay the loan. They became a prisoner, a financial prisoner, right? In world history, people that couldn't pay money back became slaves. They became prisoners of debt, right? So the word asir here is actually very broad. Anybody stuck in a situation, imprisoned by a situation, is actually an asir. And now if you look at the broader meaning of at-ta'am, yut'imun at-ta'am, then we have to take people that are stuck in a situation and we have to empower them so they can become independent. They can become independent. It's a very powerful notion, very powerful idea that's been given to us, and an agenda really. What does Islam want from us? Maybe ayah number 8 is enough to change the entire planet. وَيُطْعِمُونَ الطَّعَامَ عَلَى حُبِّهِ مِسْكِينًا وَيَتِيمًا وَأَسِيرًا. If we understood that as an agenda for the ummah, we could change the map of the world, honest to God. Honest to God. I was traveling in Pakistan recently, and I drove a lot in Pakistan. And lots of undeveloped areas, right? And I saw so much opportunity. Like young people have no vision of what to do. What are we supposed to do? The West is getting ahead in everything and we're so far behind and this and that. And many places in the Muslim world are like that. And I looked at this place. One place I said, well, why don't you get some students in economics, some students in architecture, some engineering students, some medical students. There are university students in every field. Get them together for one block in one village, clean the street up, create a clean waterway, improve these people's housing using recycled materials, improve the look and feel of these stores that look like they've been running for 800 years, right? Make a separate passageway for the animals to pass cleanly. Do this as students and show that even poor people can live well and live like they're living in Australia or living somewhere in the first world. And once you show this, then their sales will improve, their quality of life will improve, their children's life will, and you didn't change this for millions of people. You did this for 30 people on a block, right? And what's going to happen? The next 100 blocks are going to say, we can do that too. You just created yut'imun at-ta'am, right? And even students can do that. So a lot of great good can come from the qualities of the abrar that are being mentioned here. إِنَّمَا نُطْعِمُكُمْ لِوَجْهِ اللَّهِ لَا نُرِيدُ مِنْكُمْ جَزَاءً وَلَا شُكُورًا. Now the beautiful part of this ayah number 9, is we are only feeding you. They say to themselves, my reading of this ayah, like many mufassirun, is that they're not saying this out loud. This is how they feel. This is how they feel. So as they're doing this work, they're not saying, by the way, I'm giving this to you for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. My intentions are only to please Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Really? Why are you saying it then? Because Allah can hear it without you saying Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Allah can hear you already. So they say to themselves, what do they say? We're feeding you. We're only giving this to you for Allah's face. For liwajhillah literally means for Allah's face. Now what does that mean for Allah's face? It means several things. I want to show you what that one phrase means. The first meaning, I want to see Allah face to face. Meaning, I want to have one of the greatest gifts of Jannah will be actually, we will be able to handle seeing Allah. Musa alayhi salam could not see Allah in alamul khalq. He couldn't see Him, right? But in Jannah, we get to actually see Allah. وُجُوهٌ يَوْمَئِذٍ نَاظِرَةٌ إِلَىٰ رَبِّهَا نَاظِرَةٌ. The faces on that day are going to be lit, bright, because they will be staring at their Rabb. We'll actually be looking at Allah directly. That's coming in the next surah, by the way, the previous surah, Surah Al-Qiyamah. Okay? So, I want to see Allah face to face. So, I'm giving this to you, but you're not my destination. Neither is this development alone. My destination is something much bigger. You know, people do these humanitarian projects and they finally get to meet the president, right? Or they get to meet Bill Gates from the Gates Foundation or whoever, and they give them a check or certificate or whatever. They acknowledge them, or they get them a Nobel Peace Prize. Well, I'm doing this because I want a prize. I want to have a face-to-face meeting with my Rabb. So powerful, huh? And then the second meaning, I want to be able to face Allah. Now what does that mean? That actually means I have so many sins that how am I going to stand in front of Allah? I'm only doing this because as much as good this is, and I hope this good spreads, the more this good spreads, the more the document of my sins is going to get smaller, so I can actually stand in front of Allah and not be ashamed. Because there are people who don't want to make eye contact with Allah, and their heads have to be pulled back, remember? I don't want to be those people. I want to be able to face my Rabb. Then, another meaning, I would want Allah to look towards me too. I want to be someone worthy that Allah looks towards me, because there are people on Judgment Day, Allah says, لا ينظر إليهم يوم القيامة. He does not look towards them on Judgment Day. They're not worthy of being looked at. I want to be worth someone Allah looks at. And I'm hoping that some of these goods are good, this good is good enough that Allah will look towards me. The thing about properly understanding يُطْعِمُونَ الطَّعَامِ, if you do this right in your life, if we become part of sustainable good, then I could be dead for 1,000 years and the sustainable good is still going on, like the garden of Uthman radiallahu anhu, which is still a waqf in Medina, right? That's the mentality. That means I'm dead, but my good deeds are still continuing, and now, hopefully by Judgment Day, my sins have been erased. Hopefully that was enough. And now I can stand before, and I'm worthy that Allah would look towards me. And then the expression of face, I'm doing this for someone's face, actually means I'm doing this for their smile. And I'm not attributing a smile to Allah, but the smile is an expression for what? Someone happy with you, someone pleased with you, someone proud of you. I want Allah to be proud of me. I want Allah to be content with me. These are my desires for doing this work. إِنَّمَا نُطْعِمُكُمْ لِوَجْهِ اللَّهِ. I'm only doing this for these reasons, these personal set of reasons. These multiple reasons got captured in just لِوَجْهِ اللَّهِ. And then you say to them, لَا نُرِيدُ مِنْكُمْ جَزَاءً وَلَا شُكُورًا. You're not saying it to them directly. You're feeling this inside. And if they try to say, then you're saying, we don't want anything in return. We don't want any payback. And we don't want any thanks. Right? We don't want any payback, and we don't want any thanks. Now the thing is, if somebody comes and thanks you and you say, no, I don't want any thanks. I'm too humble. That's kind of the opposite of humble. That kind of defeats the purpose. So this is, again, being said within. But we have to understand the difference between payback and appreciation or gratitude. Payback means I'm doing this hoping that the video of me doing this goes viral so that people will be like, whoa, they do so much good. Oh my God, I'm going to share this again. I'm going to keep looking through the views and get how many mashallahs did I get, and how many heart emojis, etc. So I'm doing it, but I'm getting something in return. I'm getting maybe views in return, recognition. Maybe it's enhancing my portfolio. Maybe it's because I'm going to apply for a grant at this foundation. So I've got my agenda, right? That's jaza. Or I'm helping somebody in the family, but you're like, I'm going to cash this in later. I'm going to use this later. Right now it's okay, but later I'll remind you. Or I'll remind you of what I did for you. That's jaza. Meaning once you do it, this is the real test for you and me. Once you do someone a favor, you have to act like you never did it. And they can mistreat you the next day. Let me say that again. They can mistreat you the next day, and you're not going to be like, I did so much for this person, and look at how they're talking to me. Because you didn't do so much for them. You did it li wajhillah, for Allah's face. So what you did had nothing to, your feelings had nothing to do with them. Your feelings had to do with Allah. And how do you know your intentions are messed up? When they're messed up towards you, you're like, after everything I did for them, this is how they do to it. So now you did it because you needed to be paid back. And you're like, the least they could do is say thank you. You should be thanking me. La nuridu minkum jaza'an wala shukura. I don't want thanks. And this is actually bahasa, isn't it? Shukur. You guys use shukur, don't you? Straight up. That's a harder slap on y'all's face. Woo. Woo. I don't want thank you. And you know what? This ayah has another meaning that the Mufassirun haven't mentioned, but I'm going to tell you. That it came to my mind, Allahu A'lam, but it feels that way. When you say, I'm only giving you for Allah, that can also mean sometimes you have to give someone you don't like. And the only thing that can get you to give them is who? Is Allah. Because that person is ungrateful, you know they're going to harm you later somehow anyway, their tongue will never stop. You have a mean grandmother who's always sarcastic and nasty, but she's sick, and she needs help, but even when you show up, you're like, you think I need your help? You know. She does that with you, and you're like, why did I come here? You know what? Forget it. No, I'm going to give, and I'm not going to tell her, إِنَّمَا نُطْعِمُكُمْ لِوَجْهِ اللَّهِ لَا نُرِيدُ مِنْكُمْ جَزَاءً. No, this is in your head. I'm going to do this because I don't expect good from you, and I don't care what bad you give me. That's not part of my equation. That's between you and God. Me giving you is between me and Allah, not between you and me. This is the mentality that comes out of La nuridu minkum jaza'an wala shukura. Then this is an anchor. Anchors are connections in the surah. Shukur is the second time gratitude is being mentioned. When was the first time? Imma shakiran wa imma kafura, from the beginning, right? So now this is what's called a connection is being made. And what's that connection between shukur and shakir? Here's the connection. The shakir, the grateful one to Allah, doesn't need shukur. If you're truly grateful to Allah, then you're not looking for appreciation from anywhere else. You're okay. You'll be fine. When you don't get appreciated, you're fine. When you get appreciated, you're fine. When nobody watched your little post, you're fine. When everybody watched it, you're fine. You're not looking for appreciation from anywhere else. You know you did it for Allah, you're good. You're grateful you got to do something for Allah, that's it. And so the shakir doesn't need shukur because he knows Allah is shakur. Wallahu shakurun halim. Allah is the one who appreciates. Allah appreciates what I'm doing, that's good enough for me. People will never appreciate. By the way, Allah is so happy, so easy to make happy. You make a few minutes salah, Allah is pleased with you. You smile at somebody, Allah is pleased with you. You give a little sadaqah, Allah is pleased with you. People are so hard to make happy. You could do everything for people for years and years, and they turn around and say, you never did anything for me. Allah is so easy to please. People are really, really hard to please. And the crazy thing is, we run after the pleasure of people and looking for their shukr, and we don't actually appreciate that Allah is right there, shakurun halim. Right? May Allah make us that. Okay.